quiet at SoFi, but under the surface, it's boiling. Because sometimes the biggest loss isn't a player, it's a mind. A defensive brain that sees the angle before the snap, that makes a unit look faster than it really is. And when that brain walks out the door, the league feels it immediately. So I've been sitting with this all week. Are the Chargers still going to scare people in 2026? Set the scene with me. What left LA wasn't just a name on a staff sheet. It was a fingerprint. Zone-heavy structure, fast processing, clean tackling, everyone in the right lane at the right time. You don't copy-paste that. You build it. You install it. You live inside it. And the guy taking the wheel now has to prove the car doesn't skid the moment the road gets slick. Jesse Minter got his promotion to head coach in Baltimore. He earned it. Full respect. Still hurts, though. And now the job belongs to the new defensive coordinator, Chris O'Leary, who's back after coaching safeties here in 2024. And sure, coming back is the easy part. Keeping the standard? That's where it gets real. Can this defense still create 3rd and long without coughing up those dumb chunk plays? Can they still get off the field when it's tight? This system lives and dies with the secondary moving like one organism. Read, close, communicate. And then the part nobody wants to glamorize, finish the tackle. If the pass rush takes a hit, and that risk is sitting right there with Odafe Owe and Khalil Mack both looming as questions, the weight shifts hard onto the defensive backs. No spotlight, just perfect angles and clean stops that turn touchdowns into punts. That's why I keep circling one name. One guy who can change the vibe of this defense without a screaming headline. RJ Mickens. 6th-round guys aren't supposed to matter right away. But from the jump, Mickens played like somebody forgot to tell him the rules. In 12 games as a rookie, he stacked 29 tackles and came down with 2 interceptions. The Chargers moved Alohi Gilman to the Ravens, cleared the runway, and Mickens didn't waste a second showing why that mattered. And Dalton Wasserman at PFF is already pointing at him as a breakout candidate for 2026. From a football standpoint, it's pretty simple. A good safety cleans up mistakes, disguises pressure, fixes a corner's leverage when the picture gets messy. And if O'Leary keeps the spine of what Minter ran, with a few tweaks here and there, then a real second-year leap from Mickens becomes the seatbelt for the whole defense. Because the fewer big plays you gift, the more often Justin Herbert gets the ball with control, with calm, with a chance to dictate. So I'll put it on you, Bolt fam. Do you trust the identity to survive a coaching brain swap? Because if Mickens turns into a true every-down starter, the league might not see it coming until it's already a problem. And while we're talking about helping Herbert, there's a sneaky offensive piece being floated that could change how this team lives in the red zone. While everybody's yelling, fix the offensive line and add pass rush, there's been this quieter whisper around the roster that people keep stepping over. It's not flashy, it's not trending, but it shows up when the game tightens. Red zone, 3rd and short, clock bleeding, and then you realize, man, you're missing a piece. You're missing versatility. Let me ease into it before I drop the name. The Chargers' offense in 2026 isn't empty. The backfield has identity. Omarion Hampton and Kamani Vidal give you different styles, different tempos. The receiving group has variety, and it's lined up to look a lot livelier under Mike McDaniel. Motion, matchups, stress on defensive rules. That's the vision. But every modern offense still needs a pressure point. One player who makes a defense uncomfortable just by lining up. And that's where this invisible need sits. Oron Gadsden II was one of the biggest surprises of 2025. He started the season as a healthy scratch and ended up with 664 yards and 3 touchdowns on 49 catches. He became a legit big play threat. Chunk plays at tight end change how defenses call games. Seriously, it flips their menu. But football isn't only routes and highlights. Tight ends have to block. They have to sell play action. They have to hold the edge so the quarterback isn't living in survival mode snap after snap. Right now, behind Gadsden, that role feels thin. Will Dissly and Tucker Fisk didn't give you much impact on the depth chart. And that matters because it shrinks what you can call. It makes you predictable. The defense reads it, adjusts, and now Herbert's working against the clock again. Predictability, pressure, drive dead. Now here's the name that's being floated. David Njoku. He's an unrestricted free agent, and he fits the idea of versatile weapon cleanly. He's 6'4", 246, big body, real presence at the end of the line. And he's shown he can carry volume as a receiver. In 2023, he pulled 81 catches for 882 yards on 123 targets. That's not a cameo, that's a featured role. Money-wise, the projection sits around 2 years, $20 million. 10 a year. Sounds steep until you look at the context. Even after extending Tier Tart, the Chargers still have over $82 million in cap space. So once the major needs are handled, reshaping the interior offensive line, adding draft depth, working through the pass rush questions, there's room to spend if they want to. For McDaniel, Njoku is flexibility. 2 tight end looks where you can put Gadsden out wide and keep Njoku attached. Or flip it. Use Njoku as the pass catcher while Gadsden avoids some of the heavy blocking reps he still has to grow into. Either way, the defense has to choose. Base or nickel. Pick wrong and you're exposed. So I'm tossing it to you. Would you pay that price to make this offense less predictable and more dangerous in the red zone? Because the next story doesn't even start on the field. It starts with one little piece of paper that lit the whole league on fire. All of a sudden, it wasn't about wins. It wasn't about stats. It was one vote. One tiny detail you'd swear nobody would care about until it set NFL discourse on fire. Because when the stage is NFL honors, every choice turns into a statement. And this one landed right in the middle of Chargers Nation. Think back to what we watched in 2025. An offensive line that made life hard. Pressure coming from everywhere. Herbert dealing with surgery on his hand and still dragging this team into contention. With 2 games left, the Chargers were fighting for the AFC's top seed. That's not a slogan, that happened. And anyone who actually watched the tape knows how much of it came down to Herbert making something out of nothing. Then the twist. The MVP race was razor thin. Matthew Stafford won it. But it came down to a single first-place vote. One. And that one first-place vote went to Justin Herbert. If that vote doesn't exist, Drake May wins instead. That's how close we're talking. The breakdown was wild. Stafford got 24 of the 50 first-place votes. May got 23, Josh Allen got 2, Herbert got 1. And that one turned into a full-blown league argument. People saw the result and went, how? But if you lived through every 3rd and long Herbert converted behind a shaky line, you got it instantly. And then Sam Monson from the 33rd team owned it. He was the Herbert vote. His reasoning was blunt. Herbert played all season behind what he called the worst offensive line in the NFL and still worked miracles almost every week. And when Stafford's line became even a fraction as bad for a short stretch, Monson said it turned into a turnover machine. His point wasn't to disrespect Stafford. His point was value. That's the debate, right? Is MVP the best player in the best situation, or the guy who drags a messy situation into relevance? Monson's stance was that Herbert embodied value. And whether you agree or not, this is the kind of outcome you'll see more as the voting pool evolves. More voices, more perspectives, more disagreement. But from a Chargers lens, don't miss what it really signals. That vote doesn't embarrass Herbert. It validates him. It says that even without the cleanest narrative, even without perfect surroundings, someone looked at the season and said, that guy matters more than people want to admit. And speaking of what matters, there's a veteran staring at the calendar right now, and whatever he decides could shape the entire feel of this defense moving forward. Time doesn't make noise, it just shows up. One day you're talking about what's next, and the next day you're asking, do I have one more run in me? That's the NFL. And for one of the most respected names in this locker room, the decision coming up isn't just about a contract, it's about the clock. Keenan Allen at 34 proved in 2025 he can still produce. 777 yards and 4 touchdowns, crisp routes, reliable hands. But the bigger spotlight is on the other veteran. the one who changes offensive game plans just by lining up. Khalil Mack, 4 seasons as a Charger, future Hall of Famer, but also 4 seasons without a playoff win in LA. 0-3 in the postseason with the Chargers. And for a guy who's been vocal about chasing a Super Bowl, that's heavy, especially when your body starts sending reminders. Mack played 12 games in 2025 and finished with 5.5 sacks and 23 pressures. Not vintage peak Mack, but it's not nothing either. And here's what catches people off guard. PFF had him ranked as the number 34 free agent heading into the offseason, with a contract projection that looks cheaper than you'd expect. 1 year, fully guaranteed, $14 million. That's below his last deal, which sat at $18 million. Zoom out for the strategic read. A healthy Mack is still good for around 50 quarterback pressures and 8 sacks over a full season. And that's meaningful production for an edge-needy team. Over the last 4 years, he's totaled 240 pressures, 11th most among all edge defenders. That doesn't evaporate overnight. Even if the burst isn't constant anymore, the instincts still hit. Knowing when to attack, forcing the QB off the spot, creating opportunities for the guy next to him. So for the Chargers, the question isn't, is Mack still elite? The real question is, what's the value of keeping that threat while the rest of the roster gets reshaped? Especially if the pass rush already has uncertainty baked in. A short, cheaper deal can be a bridge. It can be stability. It can be the difference between closing drives and watching a quarterback carve you up on 3rd and long. But there's also the human part. Mack wants to win. He wants the ring. And he's looking at how many real shots are left. So I'll ask you straight, would you bring Khalil Mack back on that kind of deal, knowing the clock doesn't care? Because your answer to that changes the whole tone of 2026. And when you step back, it all connects. A defense trying to prove it didn't lose its soul. A young safety on the verge of taking the keys. An offense that might add a tight end who changes the red zone math. A quarterback getting league-wide respect, even in a controversial MVP vote. And a legendary veteran deciding whether to stay in the fight. That's not chaos. That's a franchise at a turning point. So here's the question that matters for Chargers Nation. Do you believe these choices build a real playoff run? Drop your take in the comments. I want to hear where Bolt Fam stands on this. If you enjoyed the breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and stay locked in, because what comes next for this team could define the whole year.